now we're going to move on by hearing a message from our guest speaker, Dr. Preet Sabharwal, and she sent us a video message. A brief introduction about her is that Dr. Sabharwal is a licensed clinical psychologist and has spent the past 13 years at the Hume Center South Asian Community Health Promotion Services, supporting Punjabi youth, adults, and families through culturally responsive care. A founder of the South Asian Mental Health Consortium, recipient of the AAPA Early Career Award, and co-author of a chapter focused on working with South Asian American youth in the textbook titled Counseling and Psychotherapy for South Asian Americans, Identity, Psychology, and Clinical Implications. Dr. Sabharwal is a national leader in the South Asian mental health advocacy space, and her work centers on breaking mental health stigma and expanding access through outreach, psychoeducation, and language-based services. And now we will play her video.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Preet Sabharwal, and I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and the Clinical Community Program Director of the South Asian Program at the Hume Center, which is a prevention, early intervention mental health services program focused on the South Asian community. I'm also the co-founder of the South Asian Mental Health Consortium that puts on the yearly South Asian Mental Health Conference. Today, we'll be talking about South Asian youth mental health. I'll be using the terminology mental health interchangeably with emotional wellness. I prefer using emotional wellness because the word mental has a negative connotation in a lot of South Asian cultures and languages. Before we start our discussion today, I'd like to set the tone about why it's so hard for us to have these types of conversations and why they don't happen often. The community still holds on to a lot of stigma and barriers when talking about mental health. First and foremost, the lack of knowledge. Emotional wellness is seen as a foreign topic. Emotional challenges are seen as character flaws or personal weaknesses, where the narrative is enforced that if we were to work harder, we would feel fine. And emotional wellness is seen as either black or white. Either you're crazy or boggle, or you're normal. The South Asian community still holds on to a lot of shame and guilt when talking about mental health or when someone is struggling. We often worry about what will others say about our family, our neighbors, or society if they know that someone in our family is struggling with their mental health. Parents often worry that they will be labeled as bad parents if their youth are struggling with mental health. Youth are also worried that if they were to be labeled because if they're struggling with their mental health, their parents and family may not love them anymore. We also often shy away from going to therapy because we don't want to talk about what happens at home with anyone outside of the home. We don't want to bring disrespect or shame to our family. The community also holds on to a lot of mental health myths, and I hope that today's discussions can help debunk some of these myths. One that I'd like to highlight is the myth that emotional wellness symptoms have to be severe in order to seek support and help. I'd like to emphasize the importance of preventative mental health care throughout the discussion today. Some facts about emotional wellness: 1 in 5 adults experiences a mental health illness in their lifetime. 17% of youth experience a mental health illness in their lifetime. The average delay between symptom onset and treatment of mental health illness is 11 years. This speaks to why it's so important for us to have these conversations to help break stigmas and to promote prevention. As we move on to our discussion today, I'd like to highlight some themes that I've seen in my work with South Asian youth and their families over the past decade. The 2 themes I will talk about will be talked about briefly, but we can expand on them during the question and answer section. The first theme that I see a lot in my practice is the dual identity dilemma, also known as the 2-world dilemma, where youth are often trying to find a balance between their American and their South Asian cultures. They often ask themselves, which one do I belong to? And are trying to find that balance. Similarly, families are trying to find that balance to understand, can both identities be connected? We talk a lot about the duality of being child of immigrants when we work with youth and their families to understand that youth can be American and they can be good children. They can speak up for themselves and respect their parents at the same time. They can love their culture and community and family and still speak out against the problematic beliefs and values they maintain. Youth can identify as being American and at the same time identify as being their parents' ethnicity. The other theme that we see quite often is the youth trying to find a balance between their own expectations for life decisions and their family's expectations for life decisions. We see youth internalizing the model minority myth, Loki Gange, worrying about what others will say, trying to figure out what the definition of success is other than financial security, and the fear of the unknown. In conclusion, I would like to start talking about the importance of prevention. We often think that folks have to seek out support or go to therapy when they're in crisis or when they have a diagnosable mental health condition. But therapy is not just a treatment for a diagnosed mental health illness. It can also be a place where youth and their families can explore future goals, where we can talk about increasing motivation and concentration, when we can talk about increasing self-confidence, increasing coping strategies, and it could be a space for youth to connect with other trusted adults. We often get the question of where can we get support when we're struggling? So I'd like to highlight 3 levels of care. First level of care is community supports, family and friends, trusted adults, school counselors, teachers, and spiritual practices. The second level of care are workshops, support groups, peer support, self-help, and hotlines. You are all engaging in second level care today by attending this workshop. And finally, the third level of care is when we feel that the above levels are not sufficient enough to support us in our need. We can reach out to our health insurance, or adults and parents can reach out to their employee assistance program. You can reach out to your physician and discuss your symptoms and collaboratively decide if you need to meet with a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Again, if you're in crisis, you should call 911 or go to the nearest emergency room. In closing, I'd like to reflect on this question and expand on it during our Q&A. How can we continue to foster more conversations around emotional wellness? The more we talk about it, the less stigma will be attached to it. And also, how can we continue to engage in preventative mental health care, similar to how we do with our physical wellness? Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful afternoon.